I never thought my life would play out like this. Sometimes I look back and wonder how things could have been different if people had made better choices. Growing up, I believed my parents had a strong and loving marriage. My mom, Elena, 54 female, was a stay-at-home mother who dedicated her life to raising me and supporting my dad, Richard, 58 male. My dad was a driven and ambitious businessman who spent years building his company from scratch. He worked tirelessly, and my mom was always there to keep things running smoothly at home. She made sacrifices so he could focus on his career. She left behind her own aspirations and dreams, always believing that she and my dad were a team. For years, I idolized my father. He was charming, intelligent, and seemed larger than life. I never saw the cracks forming beneath the surface. My mom, however, started to notice changes. My dad was coming home later and later, always claiming work was keeping him busy. He took more trips, seemed distracted when he was home, and started picking fights over the smallest things. My mom, ever trusting, assumed it was stress from running his business. But everything came crashing down when my dad announced he was leaving my mom. He didn't sit her down to have a conversation. Instead, he casually dropped the bomb one evening after dinner. "I'm leaving. I'm in love with someone else." That someone else was Claire, 38 female, his secretary. He didn't try to sugarcoat it, didn't apologize, and didn't seem to care how devastated my mom was. It turned out Claire was already pregnant. The affair had been going on for years, and my dad had been planning his exit strategy the entire time. The divorce wasn't just painful, it was a calculated betrayal. My father, ever the strategist, had spent years moving assets out of reach. He transferred properties and accounts into Claire's name and used legal loopholes to ensure my mom would get nothing. By the time the divorce was finalized, my mom, who had spent her entire adult life supporting him and raising me, was left penniless. It was devastating to watch. My mom, who had always been strong and optimistic, was broken. She had to start her life over at 50 with no savings, no career, and no safety net. She found a job as a receptionist, moved into a tiny apartment, and slowly started rebuilding. It was humiliating and heartbreaking, but she never gave up. She held her head high and did what she had to do. Watching what my father did to her filled me with anger and resentment. He didn't just leave her for another woman, he destroyed her life. I couldn't forgive him for that. I went no contact with him and refused to meet his new family. As far as I was concerned, my dad and Claire were strangers to me. If my dad's betrayal wasn't enough, my paternal grandparents made everything worse. They never liked my mom. She was an immigrant, and they always saw her as not good enough for their son. They treated her with thinly veiled disdain throughout their marriage, but when the divorce happened, they dropped all pretenses. They openly celebrated Claire's pregnancy and welcomed her with open arms. To them, she was the proper wife for their son. It was sickening to watch. My mom had been nothing but kind and respectful to them, and they repaid her with cruelty. They cut her out of their lives completely and acted like Claire was some kind of savior. I distanced myself from them too. I couldn't stomach their hypocrisy. At first, my dad and Claire seemed to have it all. They lived a luxurious lifestyle, thanks to the wealth my dad had built during his marriage to my mom. They traveled, bought a big house, and acted like their relationship was perfect. But behind closed doors, things weren't as rosy as they appeared. Claire had a wandering eye. My dad found out she was cheating on him with younger men, but he stayed with her, desperate to keep their family together for the sake of their child. The emotional toll was devastating. He started drinking heavily, neglecting his business, and spiraling into depression. Without his leadership, the business began to falter. It didn't take long for things to collapse. The company went bankrupt, and my dad lost everything. The financial strain was only making things worse between him and Claire. She resented him for no longer being able to provide the lifestyle she wanted, and their relationship turned toxic. Eventually, she left him, taking their child with her. My dad, left with nothing, no family, no career, no purpose, ended his life shortly after. When I heard the news, I felt a complicated mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and numbness. He had made his choices, and they had led him to this. I attended his funeral out of obligation, but I couldn't bring myself to look at Claire. In my mind, she was as much to blame as he was for the destruction of my family. For a couple of years after the funeral, I didn't hear from my grandparents. I thought I was done with them. But recently, they contacted me out of the blue. At first, I thought they wanted to make amends or reconnect. Instead, they hit me with a demand that left me speechless. They told me Claire was struggling financially. She was on the verge of being evicted and needed help. They demanded that I step up and support her and her child, my half-sibling, though I've never acknowledged the child as such. They said it was the right thing to do, and that it's what my father would have wanted. I was stunned. I asked them if they were joking, but they were dead serious. They said I had a responsibility to help because Claire was family, and that her child was innocent in all of this. I told them no. I reminded them how Claire had played a role in destroying my family, and asked them where this concern for family was when my mom was left with nothing. Where was this sense of responsibility when they were celebrating Claire's pregnancy while my mom was struggling to survive? They had no answers, only more demands. I know this child is innocent in all of this. He didn't ask to be born into this mess, and I feel for him. But I can't separate him from his mother, and I don't feel any connection to him. Claire made her choices, and now she's facing the consequences. It's not my job to clean up the mess she made of her life. Still, I can't shake the guilt entirely. My grandparents have been relentless, calling me heartless and selfish for refusing to help. They've tried to guilt-trip me by bringing up my late father, saying he would have wanted me to support Claire and their child because that boy is my blood. But I can't forgive him or them for what they did to my mom. I watched her rebuild her life from nothing while they all lived comfortably. Now that the tables have turned, they expect me to be the bigger person. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to support my late father's mistress and her child? This story is a perfect example of how choosing a wrong partner can ruin your life. OP's father and Claire made their choices, and those choices had consequences. Claire was fully aware of what she was doing when she got involved with OP's father, knowing he had a family. She benefited from his betrayal and enjoyed the luxurious lifestyle he could provide, until everything fell apart. Now that the consequences have caught up with her, she's looking for someone to bail her out. OP's grandparents are just as complicit. They supported Claire and OP's father, even after they destroyed OP's family, and they had no sympathy for OP's mom when she was left with nothing. Where was this concern for family back then? It's infuriating that they now expect OP to clean up the mess Claire and OP's father made. OP owes Claire and her grandparents absolutely nothing. If they're so concerned about her, maybe they should support her themselves. And now let's hear the community's opinion. I'm torn because I do feel for the child. They're innocent in this mess. But that doesn't make them your responsibility. Claire knew what she was doing when she pursued a married man. She made choices that led to this situation, and now she's facing the natural consequences of those choices. It's not fair for your grandparents to dump this burden on you, especially when they've shown such blatant hypocrisy. Think about your mom. She was left with nothing after the divorce, and your grandparents didn't seem to care about family then. They actively celebrated Claire's role in your family's destruction. Now that things aren't going Claire's way, they suddenly care about helping? It's not about family. It's about convenience for them. You've already done more than enough by rebuilding your life and supporting your mom. Claire needs to take responsibility for her own life, and your grandparents need to stop enabling her. You're not the a-hole for standing your ground. This is one of those stories that makes my blood boil. Your father's betrayal of your mom was bad enough, but to see Claire and your grandparents cheer him on while your mom had to rebuild her life from scratch? It's infuriating. And now they want to guilt-trip you into supporting Claire? The sheer audacity of it is unbelievable. Let's be clear. Claire made her bed. She chose to have an affair with a married man. She chose to live off the wealth he built with your mom's support, and she chose to leave when that wealth dried up. None of that is your fault, and none of it is your responsibility to fix. Your grandparents are trying to manipulate you into feeling guilty because they can't handle the mess they enabled. Don't let them. Your loyalty lies with your mom and yourself, not with the people who tore your family apart. You're absolutely not the a-hole. This entire situation reeks of karma finally catching up to your father, Claire, and your grandparents. Your father made his choices. Claire made hers, and your grandparents encouraged it all. They didn't care about your mom when she was left with nothing, and they certainly didn't care about the impact their actions had on you. Now that Claire is struggling, they want you to be the bigger person and bail her out? That's beyond hypocritical.
My fiancé, male 26, and I, female 27, have been together for 6 years and got engaged in July. I've been waiting for this for years and have been over the moon these past couple months. Last week, his little sister, female 20, got engaged, so I planned a celebration dinner for their family to see them and express their happiness for them. When no one on his side even blinked when they got engaged or said congratulations, I wanted to do something so she felt special. At dinner, it came up they are planning a destination wedding 1 month after our wedding. Of course, my fiancé wants to be there for his sister, but financially, that's a lot right after our wedding that we are already budgeting for. We're looking at solutions to this, but my fiancé suggested we postpone our wedding until after theirs so we can resave. His reasoning for this is that he doesn't want me to give up aspects for our wedding so that we can afford to go to theirs. While this has good intentions, I selfishly don't want to wait any longer to be his wife. I also don't want to be over 30 by the time we get married. I already have my dress, our decor, and our venue. He suggested we could elope and have a reception later, but it feels like I'm getting the short end of the stick. Would it be incredibly rude to ask they wait a few months, as it's mostly a trip anyways? Who wouldn't want to go to Cuba in the winter? My fiancé is very upset, saying that we can't afford both. I don't want him to miss his sister's wedding or feel like I'm asking him to pick me over her, but I don't want to wait 3+ years for our wedding to accommodate theirs. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I would honestly be rethinking my relationship with him. Going to his sister's wedding is more important than you two getting married? That sounds more like he's marrying you because he feels he has to continue the relationship, versus a genuine desire to marry you. Not the a-hole. When you said you've already got the venue, that sealed it for me. Generally, you put down a deposit, and if you cancel, some or all of it may not be refunded. Does your fiancé know this? Anyone doing a destination wedding is an a-hole in my opinion. I'm assuming his sister was aware of your wedding date, which makes her plan even more of an a-hole move. Your fiancé is being too nice. His sister can either wait a year or do something that doesn't put a burden on everyone else's finances. Not the a-hole, but don't bother asking them to change their date. Your problem lies at home. So he strung you along for 6 years and now thinks it's okay to delay another couple years? This isn't how it works when they're really into you and want to get married. She's a 20-year-old kid, and he's clearly choosing her event over yours. Nope. I, 33 male, have no contact with my parents, 72 male retired, and 65 female about to retire, and siblings for about 1.5 years now. But I have always been sending my parents money on the 1st of every month, ever since I graduated college and got a job. I increased this amount as my career progressed, so as of 2020, I was sending them both $1,000 each. This continued through the virus and my wedding, which I paid for myself without any parental support. I've also been paying for the internet service at my parents' house since I started working after college. For context, the currency in my home country is such that an average meal plus drink in the business district costs $10. Outside the city, this can go down to $5 to $6. My decision to cut off contact was due primarily to wanting to escape from their narcissistic ideology that children belong to their parents, which was made all the worse when my father attempted to enforce this on my wife 1.5 years ago after we got married. More recently, my wife and I moved to a different country for my work, and we gave birth to our baby daughter there. With all the changes to our financial situation, it was getting too difficult to maintain the monthly sum that I was remitting back to my parents. Calculating the cost of raising a kid, including her college fund, having a family, my wife is a homemaker, as well as medical bills, made it very clear that I would only be able to sustain the arrangement if I terminated the internet plan and reduced the amount I was sending them to $300. I sent an email to my parents detailing the planned changes and my reasons for reducing the amounts. The reply from my father began with the fact that he had spent so much money raising me and sending me through college that it was only right that I maintain their monthly $1,000 payments. Along with it also came a tirade of guilt-tripping phrases such as not telling us about the birth of our granddaughter, and some thinly veiled threatening ones like, I will come to location to visit you, our dear son. The email conversation was not pretty and brought up a lot of old hurts that were the reason I went no contact in the first place. At the end of it all, my father's final response still had the following words, do send the $1,000. I understand that I have a debt to repay for the years of upbringing, but it is really getting to the point where the concept of blind filial piety is beginning to feel like egoistic nonsense. Am I the a-hole for wanting to keep that money for my own family? What debt? They chose to have children. So they, of course, had to provide for you. There is no debt you need to repay. Stop the payments. You have a family of your own. Put that money you usually send over to them aside for your kiddo, or even better, pay a psychologist for you. Not the a-hole. Your parents chose to have children. You do not owe them that debt. Having children is not a financial investment. You now have a child of your own. Stop sending that money to them. Absolutely not. Your parents' behavior is extremely toxic. You owe them nothing. You did not ask to be brought into this world. You are your own person. You are not your parents' property. Not the a-hole. They can accept the $300 or they can get nothing. Update. After mulling it over, I've stopped all communication and stopped the standing instruction with my bank that kept sending the money every month. I also stopped the internet service, even though I had to pay some penalties amounting to $300. I've also started preparing for sudden unwanted visits, seeking legal advice, and looking up the procedures for filing a restraining order. Since then, I felt like a weight is just lifted off my shoulders, and that I have a lot more room in my life to do things I want to do. Even with the stress of a new baby, it just feels like everything is possible now. My dad cheated on my mom when I was 14. I was the one who discovered the affair. I do know that my mom was a narcissist and that their relationship was failing, but it doesn't excuse my dad for the pain he caused her and myself. She died when I was 16, and I had to move in with my dad and his wife. I literally can't stand this woman, not just because she's my dad's affair partner, but because she continues to try to take my mom's place. I moved out at 19 and never went back. I'm now 29 female, and my fiancé proposed. Our relationship was a bit of a scandal when it occurred. He was my best friend's ex. She cheated on him. I found it repulsive, and I told him about it the second she confessed it to me. I dialed him right in front of her and told her that she was disgusting. I cut her out of my life and supported him as a friend. 2 years later, we started dating. He proposed in October 2021. We've been together 5 years. My dad and stepmom took me dress shopping last weekend. They're not paying for anything, but my dad offered to buy my dress as a present. I'm not going for a huge expensive gown, which my stepmom disapproves of. So there was already tension because I wasn't taking her advice. She started talking to me about how my relationship started as we were at lunch, and she was concerned that I was marrying my ex-friend's ex. I told her that we didn't intend to start dating. We just sort of happened. She wouldn't drop it, saying it was the third time I broke the girl code, which was you don't date your friend's ex, but the second time was outing the affair. I looked at my dad, who was busying himself with anything but the conversation. I looked at her and I said, "No, you broke the morality code by going after a married man. She broke it by cheating on her boyfriend. I'm sorry, I don't condone being a homewrecker, W." I paid the check and left. My dad went off on me later on the phone, saying my stepmom is crying and says I'm not looking at the full picture. I said she was right and that I shouldn't dismiss the fact that he was also a home-wrecking a-hole and that placing the onus on her solely was wrong. I Venmo'd him the money for the dress and uninvited them both to the wedding, telling them that maybe it wasn't the best place for homewreckers. Now, half of his side of the family is threatening not to go. I'm a bit hurt, but the ones that matter to me are still planning on attending and have expressed support, including my grandma. My dad is blowing up my phone begging me to meet and talk it out. My fiancé said, however, that I shouldn't be so harsh, as it's been 15 years and they are still together. The fact he defended them gave me pause. Not the a-hole. It's been 15 years, and the homewrecker still thinks it's your fault. That's what's harsh. Your dad and stepmom sound like real pieces of work. Not the a-hole. I love how your stepmom tried to call your relationship out when she was going out with the married man. And if you don't want to be outed for having an affair, don't have an affair. You had a totally reasonable reaction. I'm with you on this one. I hope the wedding goes well. Not the a-hole. Stepmom is quite the hypocrite. She has absolutely no right to be talking about girl code and morals when she slept with a married man and essentially destroyed a marriage. I wouldn't want either of them at my wedding either. God only knows what stepmom will be saying or doing while there, if this is how she feels. Some background. My parents got divorced when I was 12 years old. My mom moved out very quickly and got married to her husband Frank within 1 year. Frank has a daughter, Alicia, who was 2 years younger. They moved in together shortly after, so I lived half with them and half with my dad from about ages 13 to 18. Towards the end of high school, despite the custody technically being 50-50, I stayed with my dad the majority of the time. I also have two older real siblings who were 15 and 18, so didn't spend as much time with Alicia. Alicia and I were always cool, but never especially close. Nothing against her, I just wasn't looking for a new sibling, and as you can imagine, I had my hesitations about Frank. Anyways, Alicia got engaged recently and is planning a wedding for this June on what just so happens to be my 30th birthday. Having a mid-June birthday, this doesn't offend or shock me. It's always wedding season, so I've spent quite a few birthday weekends at weddings. It just is what it is. When my mom called me to tell me she knows the timing isn't ideal, but made a joke, "At least you'll have a free party on your birthday," I told her that actually, I have a Euro trip planned with my girlfriend for that week. We've been planning it for quite some time, before Alicia got engaged. My mom and Frank both told me I need to reschedule it because a family event comes before a vacation. I responded by saying, I wish her the best, but she's not exactly my family, and I'm going to spend my 30th how I want. I will contribute some cash to her honey fund, but that's it. They are both really mad at me, and Alicia reached out to me apologizing about the date, but it was the only time they could get the venue they wanted. I told her no sweat, and I hope she has a blast. She then begged me to come and said I mean a lot to her, as I'm the only step-sibling she had time to bond with, which caught me off guard because I never considered us close. I told her sorry, but my mind is made up. She seemed really sad and eventually hung up. Since then, my mom has been begging me to change my mind, and Frank said I'm being a huge a-hole since he helped raise me. I should be there for my sister's wedding. I laughed and said I wouldn't call him a father figure, and she's not my sister. That set him off more. Am I the a-hole here? I don't understand how people expect others to have sibling feelings toward their parents' significant other's children. In some cases, they may feel family affection towards the step-parent and their children, and in many cases, the relationship is more of roommates. A parent's marriage to a person with children doesn't obligate the children to have affection for each other. Considering that you're not part of the wedding party, there's zero obligation for you to attend, no matter how much they beg. You've already made plans and laid out money that you likely can't get back. You shouldn't have any reservations about having fun on your birthday, and you can always send a nice gift. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She knew it was your birthday, and she apologized because she wanted that venue. All good. What isn't good is Alicia, your mom, and her husband expecting you to rearrange a whole trip for one day that is happening on your 30th, which is a milestone birthday. It's not your free party. It's Alicia's wedding. Everything will be focused, as it should be, on her and her husband because it's her wedding, not your 30th. You want to celebrate and enjoy your birthday as you planned. Don't listen to the guilt trip. She might have bonded with you, but you didn't with her. Your mom's husband can throw his toys out and pram all he wants because you didn't choose him. Your mom did, and being a minor, had no choice but to go along with it, till you started staying more at your dad's. My mom and stepdad got married when I, 30 female, was 10. That same year, they had my half-sister, 20 female. They had a pretty good relationship, but my stepdad never accepted me as part of their family, and I was always made to feel like an outsider. It created tension between my mom and stepdad, but things were okay. When I was 13, my mom had a stillbirth, and without saying too much for my family's privacy, it caused a huge rift between them. It got worse when I went off to college. When they had my half-sister, my mom agreed to put the college fund she had for me, all of my deceased father's inheritance, into a joint account for my half-sister and I to split for college. When I went to college, my stepdad said the school I chose was too expensive, and they would only cover a portion. My mom took my side. All this to say, they finally divorced earlier this year. It was very hard on my half-sister, who grew up with two loving parents and did not see the problems in their marriage as she was too young to remember or be involved. My stepdad made it clear to my half-sister that my mom was the one who initiated the divorce, and my half-sister is very upset with her over it, making this 10 times harder on my mom. My mom's birthday was last week, and I spent the weekend with her to celebrate. My half-sister was invited, and I offered to pay her ticket, but she chose to stay with her dad. One of the things we talked about was all the mutual stuff that my stepdad chose not to take with him after they divorced, including a china set they received as a wedding gift. My mom said it was hard to decide what to do with it, and how upset it made her to have it in the house. I suggested we get some of those feelings out by smashing the set in the backyard. We did, and had a great time of it. My sister texted later that night and said she was sorry for not coming and asked what we were up to. I told her and said we were having fun, but it would be better with her. She flipped her lid and insisted that China was hers or her dad's, and we never should have broken it without their permission. I pointed out her dad left it at the house and she never had any interest in it. She insisted it was an heirloom and we were wrong for it. I just went to bed and ignored her, figuring it was for her and Mom to duke it out. Well, she posted about it on Facebook and called out my mom for being an irresponsible, permissive, narcissistic parent. Mom is heartbroken and feels so guilty she hadn't been eating or sleeping. She's furious with me for talking her into it and furious at herself for allowing it. Whole family is now involved, mostly bashing Mom and I. Stepfamily calls me ringleader and has sent so much hate and aggression to me for it. I've stood by it, but my mom wants me to apologize to my sister. I can if it feels like it was wrong to me, but I am willing to accept with as much hate as I've gotten. I might be in the wrong. Am I the a-hole for breaking my mom's wedding china without my sister's okay? Not the a-hole. Sounds like your mom had a cathartic moment, and she deserves that. Sister should mind her business. She sounds jealous that you and Mom had a good time. Not the a-hole. I actually think you need to step away from your mother and half-sister. Your mother failed as a parent when she decided to stay with a man who treated you as an outsider in your own home. She is your mother and is supposed to protect you as much as possible from toxic environments, not expose you to a man who made you feel unwanted in your own family. The fact that she split your inheritance from your father with your half-sister is disgusting and another failure as a parent. You are her child, yet she put making her husband happy by taking away something that rightfully belongs to you. You deserve better than a mother like that. Let her deal with the mess she created by marrying such a toxic man. Not the a-hole. It is amazing to me that people think they are entitled to anyone else's property. The china belonged to your mom and stepdad until he abandoned that property. He never looked at it as an heirloom until his daughter became mad. She didn't care about it until your mom didn't want it. There is nothing that you can do about your stepdad being bitter and poisoning your half-sister. You and your mom did nothing wrong.
Sarah's been my friend for what seems like forever. We met in high school, and while we weren't joined at the hip, she was always someone I could count on. She was warm, funny, and had this charm about her that made people gravitate toward her. Over the years, we stayed in touch through the ups and downs of life. College, jobs, marriages. She married Tom, I married Ethan, and though our lives were busy, we made time for each other when we could. That's why when Sarah showed up at my doorstep one night, crying and holding 2 overstuffed bags, I didn't hesitate. "Tom kicked me out," she said, barely able to get the words out between sobs. "He found out I'm pregnant and doesn't want me or the baby." I was shocked. How could Tom, someone I'd always thought of as solid and reliable, do something so cruel? Sarah explained that he'd been cheating on her for months and accused her of trapping him with the pregnancy. He told her to leave, and she had nowhere else to go. "Of course you can stay," I told her, pulling her into a hug. Ethan came into the hallway concerned. When I explained what had happened, he immediately agreed. "We'll figure it out," he said. I felt so grateful in that moment. Grateful to have a supportive husband and grateful to be in a position to help my friend. Sarah moved into our guest room, and I threw myself into making her feel at home. Her pregnancy wasn't easy. She was constantly sick, exhausted, and overwhelmed by everything she was going through. I stepped up to help her as much as I could. I cooked her meals, cleaned up after her, and drove her to every doctor's appointment. I even helped her set up a little nursery in the guest room, complete with a crib and baby clothes. Ethan was a huge help too. He was always kind and attentive, bringing Sarah tea when she felt sick, and even helping me assemble furniture for the nursery. At the time, I thought his involvement was sweet. I felt like we were a team, helping someone in need. It felt good to do something meaningful for someone I cared about, and I was proud I had such a supportive husband. When Sarah gave birth to her daughter, Lily, it was an emotional experience for all of us. Sarah's labor had been difficult, leaving her physically and emotionally drained. I stepped up even more after Lily was born, helping with feedings, changing diapers, and rocking Lily to sleep when Sarah needed rest. Ethan, once again, surprised me with how involved he was. He doted on Lily, buying her clothes and toys and spending hours holding her. I thought it was heartwarming. He'd always been good with kids, and I was proud of how much he cared about Sarah and her baby. But as the weeks turned into months, something started to feel strange. Ethan's attachment to Lily grew stronger, and it began to nag at me. He seemed more interested in her than he'd ever been with our nieces or nephews. He would rush to pick her up when she cried, spend hours in the nursery, and even start calling her nicknames like Princess and Sweetheart. I told myself I was overthinking it. Ethan was just being kind, wasn't he? But the little things started piling up. The way Sarah and Ethan seemed to have unspoken conversations with their eyes. The way Ethan always seemed to anticipate her needs. I kept brushing it off, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. When Lily turned 1, I got an email from Tom. My stomach dropped as I read it. He said he'd heard rumors that Ethan was Lily's biological father. He didn't have proof, but thought I deserved to know. He suggested I confront them directly. My heart was pounding. I felt sick. All those little things I'd been ignoring came crashing back with brutal clarity. Could it be true? I didn't want to believe it, but the pieces were starting to fit together. That night, I confronted Ethan and Sarah. I didn't sugarcoat it. I showed them the email and demanded the truth. At first, they denied it, but as I pressed harder, their facade crumbled. Yes, Sarah finally admitted, tears streaming down her face. Ethan is Lily's father. I can't even describe the feeling. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. They told me they'd been having an affair for over 2 years, well before Sarah moved into our home. Ethan claimed it was over before Lily was born, but that didn't make it any easier to hear. What hurt even more than the affair was their reaction. They didn't apologize, not really. Instead, they tried to justify it. Sarah said, "We've already built a good life here. Why not just keep things the way they are?" Ethan added, "That is what's best for Lily. She needs stability." I couldn't believe their audacity. They wanted me to keep living with them, pretending everything was fine, while they played house with the child they'd conceived behind my back. It was as if my pain didn't matter, as if I was just an obstacle in their twisted version of happiness. I told them both to leave. Sarah started crying, accusing me of being cruel. "You're kicking out a fragile mother and her baby after everything I've been through?" she wailed. Ethan tried to calm me down, saying we should think of Lily, but I wasn't interested. The house was mine, and I wanted them gone. I gave them 2 days to pack their things. Sarah and Ethan moved in with Sarah's parents. Since then, Sarah's been telling anyone who will listen that I'm heartless. She's painted herself as the victim, saying I abandoned her and Lily when they needed me most. Some friends have reached out, asking if I could have been more understanding. Lily's just a baby, they say. She didn't choose this. And they're right. Lily is innocent. But how could I keep living with the people who betrayed me so deeply? I welcomed Sarah into my home, supported her through her pregnancy, and helped care for her child, all while she and Ethan were lying to my face. I know Lily didn't ask for any of this. She's just a child caught in the crossfire of her parents' terrible choices. But I couldn't sacrifice my sanity and dignity for her. Does that make me cruel? Should I have tried to make it work for her sake? Or was I right to put myself first and demand they leave? Reddit. Am I the a-hole for kicking them out? Let's be real. Sarah and Ethan knew exactly what they were doing. They took advantage of OP's kindness, their home, and her trust, all while hiding the most devastating secret from OP. And then they had the audacity to suggest OP should just keep living together? That's beyond selfish. OP was right to kick them out. What they did was cruel, and they showed no real remorse. Lily may be innocent, but her parents made their choices, and now they have to deal with the consequences. OP is not the a-hole for putting herself first and refusing to let them continue to hurt her. And now let's hear the community's opinion. I can't believe what you've been through. You didn't just open your home to Sarah. You practically saved her when she had nowhere else to go. And this is how she repaid you? By hiding the ultimate betrayal? You are not the a-hole. The fact that they tried to justify their actions instead of apologizing tells you everything you need to know about their character. Don't let anyone guilt you into thinking you're wrong for standing up for yourself. Wow. Just wow. Sarah and Ethan didn't just betray you. They manipulated and used you. You cared for Sarah during her hardest time, and they both let you do it while hiding this massive lie. I don't blame you for kicking them out. You owe them nothing, especially after their audacity to suggest you keep things as they are. Lily may be innocent, but her parents made their bed. Stand your ground. You've already done more than enough. You were more than generous to Sarah, even after Tom abandoned her. She had no right to use your kindness as a shield for her lies. Ethan's betrayal cuts even deeper. He was supposed to be your partner, and he let you care for this child without ever telling you the truth? Kicking them out wasn't cruel. It was necessary. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
My 35 female, last remaining grandmother passed away last month. That side of the family is Jewish, and it's customary to give inheritance to the grandkids in Jewish families. My sister, 27 female, is a single mom of 3, one with special needs. All have different dads, none are in the picture. One is in jail, another one was a one-night stand in Vegas, doesn't even remember his first name, and the other is just an unemployed deadbeat. She's drowning in debt, mostly medical bills for special needs child, and got fired from multiple jobs due to having to always call out due to her special needs child having some medical emergency. She's months behind on rent, but landlord hasn't evicted her because he feels sorry for her. My husband, 42 male, and I are child-free by choice. While we aren't Vanderbilts by any stretch, we do have a comfortable lifestyle. We were going to use my portion of the inheritance for a down payment on a house. We live in an apartment, albeit a nice one, and to treat ourselves to a nice vacation in Europe. I've never been there, but dear husband has, and I've always wanted to go. My sister's portion of the inheritance will cover some of her debt. She wants to pay off creditors first because they're threatening to take her to court while the landlord is showing more leniency. But my family is saying I should give her my share of the inheritance because that would cover almost all her debt. She wasn't spending frivolously. It was mostly the mounting medical bills for my special needs nephew. And it's more important than a house because we're fine in our apartment, and this is more urgent. I'm no prude or S-shamer, but bottom line is, my sister was reckless in having unprotected S with multiple men and getting pregnant by 3 separate ones who, for various reasons, can't or don't help, and that's not my fault. I don't feel my husband and I should have to sacrifice our dream of being homeowners, which is incredibly hard to do these days, and having to sacrifice this vacation I've always wanted to go on. I was responsible and think I made good choices, and don't think I should have to suffer consequences for her poor decisions. Am I the a-hole? Edit. When I told my family I'm not responsible for her reckless life choices, they agreed that she didn't make good decisions, but the children are innocent. I agree, but that's still not my fault, nor my problem. Edit. I also reminded them she could get pregnant again anytime, because she's still young, and she doesn't believe in termination. Even if I did give, it will never be enough. Edit. For those accusing me of S-shaming, I could care less what consenting adults do behind closed doors. My issue is her carelessness with birth control. She doesn't like hormonal birth control due to them making her gain weight. She gained a lot more with pregnancy, but okay. I've brought up voluntary sterilization, which I got done, which Planned Parenthood will do for free, but she won't because she's afraid she'll regret it later, and she loves babies, and as I said earlier, she doesn't believe in termination. I don't care under what circumstances consenting adults have S, but it's not okay to come to me with your handout when you can't afford the consequences of your choices. As one poster said, I'm not S-shaming, I'm stupidity-shaming, and won't deny it. And I've helped her out before, but it never seems to stop. At what point does it end? When do I get to fulfill my dreams? Or do I forever have to flush my dreams down the toilet to keep bailing my sister out of trouble? Not the a-hole. If you want to be both petty and generous, tell your family you'll match whatever money they give her. They probably won't give any, or at least not much, because it's a lot easier to be generous on someone else's dime. Not the a-hole. You aren't responsible for your sister's repeated bad life choices. More importantly, if your grandmother wanted her to have it, she would have put it in her will. Not the a-hole. The money was your grandmother's last gift to you. Your grandmother could have stipulated that more of the money go to your sister, but didn't. Feel no guilt. You're never obligated to dig someone else out of their own crap, even family. I, 26 female, am my mom's, 54 female, child and only daughter to my dad, who she met after breaking up with my Uncle Bob, 53 male, who had cheated on her with my Aunt Jane, 51 female, and was pressured into marriage by their parents, finding out Jane was pregnant with my cousin, Amelia, 32 female. I'm not sure about all the details, but from what I've gathered, Bob started sleeping with Amelia because she was willing, while my mom wanted to wait until marriage. My grandparents were very religious and traditionalists. My mom was devastated and cut Bob and Amelia out of her life for years and went low contact with my grandparents after they retried pushing for reconciliation after Amelia was born. Eventually, my mom met my dad and got engaged, and I guess by that point, she was truly over Bob because she invited him, Jane, Amelia, and their son, Bob Jr., 28 male, to the wedding. Jane was bummed out that she couldn't be a bridesmaid, or that my mom made my godsister her flower girl instead of Amelia, and there was an argument. Before the wedding, there was a sit-down between my parents, Bob, Jane, and my maternal grandparents, where my mom said that she was willing to have some type of relationship with all of them, but only under the condition that they all agreed to never speak about the past again. From that day on, me and my cousin all grew up together and never knew the truth, and I thought we were all one big happy family. So I was surprised my mom wasn't as sympathetic as I thought she would be when it turned out that Bob had been cheating on my aunt multiple times with different women. They later divorced after Bob had gotten one of the flings pregnant. Bob moved away and barely saw my cousins, but he always sent me cards, presents, and messages. I also didn't find out until later, but he actually paid for my college in secret, so I didn't have any debt, while Amelia and Bob got only partial help from him. Recently, my Uncle Bob passed away, and his lawyer requested that I attend the will reading, and I went to more so support my cousins. I was floored when I realized that I got almost everything. That's when the secret came out, and it was revealed that Bob never got over my mom, was still in love with her, and always saw me as the daughter that should have been his. It took me getting a DNA test to prove that I was my father's daughter to convince everyone that my mom never slept with Bob. And during that time, my cousins and Bob's other children said some really nasty things to me. After some time had cooled off, I looked at the total value of my share of around $400,000 after fees and agreed to just give 50% to my cousins. They weren't happy and felt that as Bob's legal children, they should get everything. Wouldn't hear about accepting any less, and called me a greedy witch with a B. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Voluntarily sharing $200K with your cousins is very generous. Technically speaking, you would still not be the a-hole, even if you followed Bob's original intent. Bob, on the other hand, wow, major a-hole on many fronts. Sounds like you dodged a bullet by not actually being the daughter that should have been his. Not the a-hole. You know that whatever you do, your relationship with your cousins is over. You can keep the money, give it all to them, donate it, flush it down the toilet, and the result will be the same. With that in mind, do what you want to do with the money, and not what you think would make your cousins happy, because nothing will make them happy. I also find it extremely creepy that your uncle projected his feelings for your mother onto you, and not only tried to keep in touch with you after he cheated on his wife and didn't even bother with his kids, but also named you the beneficiary of his will. What the actual duck? Personally, I think 50% is 50% too much. Their anger is directed at the wrong person. It is weird that your uncle left as much as he did to you and not his children. Yes, but that was none of your doing. Not the a-hole, but your cousins are. I, 16 male, have a younger brother, 13 male, and we share a mom but have different dads. My parents were married and mom cheated or had an affair, and my brother was the result. My dad didn't want to raise my brother or stay married to my mom, which I get. But when my brother's bio father left the country to flee all child support stuff, my mom and her family decided my dad was a piece of trash for not loving my brother for being my brother. Mom over the years has filled my brother with the idea my dad should be his dad too, since we're related, and she's always tried to encourage me to include him in my time with my dad, and has encouraged him to tell me how he feels left out. It's always been awkward. My dad and I talk about it. He has spoken to Mom. He has taken her to court over the issue, and he has asked me if I want him to adopt my brother as his own. I always said he didn't have to. I just hate the pressure. My brother and I don't have a great relationship because of everything. I've included him a couple of times if my dad was offering to take me and friends someplace. But my brother tries to bond with my dad and then gets upset when my dad doesn't treat him the same as me. Last time he got mad because dad treated him the same as my friends and corrected him when he said they were family. So my dad took me and some friends to a cool arcade in another city. I didn't invite my brother this time. I didn't even mention it. But I guess Dad had to because he was taking me so far, and my mom was pissed when I got to her house. My brother was upset and told me he's being left behind, left out. I told him it's not that, but he needs to understand that he makes things awkward when he chases after my dad. He told me Dad should be there for him too, and he's just a kid without a dad, and how can I not be mad at my dad for excluding him? My mom and her family told me I should be ashamed of myself for excluding my brother. I argued back that it always ends badly when he's there, and I'm done letting him think he can use that time to get close to Dad, because clearly Dad doesn't want to raise him. I was called a crappy brother. Am I the a-hole? OP's mom has destroyed her marriage. Now she is working on destroying the sibling bond between her sons. If she's not careful, she will destroy her younger son by encouraging him to believe her first husband owes him a father-son relationship. No doubt she will be shocked and heartbroken when OP moves out as soon as he can. She doesn't see she is chasing him away by putting him in the middle of a situation he's in no way responsible for. Not the a-hole. You should be ashamed? Your mom should be ashamed. There's a whole lot of blame being directed at you here that should be laid at your mother's feet. Duck that noise. Not the a-hole. Your mother created an affair baby, and your father's not wrong for refusing to be his father. Your mother is responsible for the mess. She has been emotionally aggressive to your brother and you for years by trying to force a bio-type relationship between your brother and your father. If your brother has uncles on his father's side, she should try to form relationships with them. Your brother is innocent, but your father does not owe him a relationship. Your mother's actions show that it is in her nature to only care about herself. Your father sounds like a great dad. I, male 29. Have a girlfriend, Lily, female 26. Lily and I have been dating for around 8 months. I have a daughter, Alice, female 7, whose mother is my ex-fiancée, Rachel, female 29. Our relationship ended for multiple complicated reasons, which I won't get into here. It mainly boiled down to us simply not being romantically compatible. Rachel and I are on good terms. We had a few petty disagreements in the beginning, but we've been able to co-parent pretty well. Lily never had an issue with me being a single dad, and she interacts really well with Alice. However, recently, I think Lily really overstepped and acted inappropriately. Last week, Alice's school had a fair. There was games, prizes, food, and music. Alice is in her school's dance club, which was doing a performance towards the end of the fair. I talked to Rachel about the event, and we agreed that I would take Alice to the fair and Rachel would meet up with us at the event, then take Alice back to her home. Lily insisted on accompanying me and Alice to the fair, and I didn't see a reason as to why she couldn't come along. However, Rachel didn't meet us when she agreed to. I tried to call her a few times, but she wasn't answering. Lily seemed a lot more annoyed about it than I was, and went on about how Rachel shouldn't be late and that she needs to prioritize her time better. I told Lily she's probably just stuck in traffic or something, and that it's no big deal. Rachel ended up being 2 hours late and didn't arrive until after the dance performance. She said that her boss made her stay behind past the time she was supposed to finish, and was really apologetic. Rachel is not normally late. I will admit that Alice was pretty disappointed, but these things happen. Lily was fuming angry, and confronted Rachel in front of Alice. She accused Rachel of not caring about her child and being hopelessly disorganized. Lily told Rachel that her own mother was like her, and that she hates her for it. I tried to calm Lily down and prevent an argument, but Rachel started yelling at Lily and said that she has no right to criticize her and that she's not Alice's parent. They got into a screaming match and caused a huge scene. Alice started crying, and Rachel eventually took Alice to her car and left. I took Lily home, but I was really angry with her. I talked to Lily the next day when she was more calm and told her that she majorly overstepped her bounds and that she owes Rachel an apology. Lily seemed surprised that I'd say that and said that Rachel was blatantly in the wrong and that she should have been more organized and prioritized her child. I told Lily that doesn't matter and that she behaved inappropriately. Lily was really mad that I didn't take her side and has been very cold towards me. Even if your ex was hopelessly disorganized and a train wreck, it's not even remotely your girlfriend's place to point it out in front of her child. Frankly, if I were you, I'd be livid. It doesn't matter, your girlfriend can talk to you in private, but you do not badmouth your co-parent in front of the child. This is hard enough on your daughter. She just made it harder and drove a wedge into your situation. I'd be telling her she needs to apologize or she can move on. Not the a-hole. Not even close, dude. Not the a-hole. So much not the a-hole. I don't care if she had a valid point. I don't care if she was upset on Alice's behalf, etc. What matters is she initiated a fight with Alice's mother in front of her. That is parenting 101. You do not speak poorly of a parent to or in front of the child. Not the a-hole. Your girlfriend completely overstepped on this. I'm sure the mom would have liked to be there, so she could have tried to be understanding. It's completely inappropriate to accuse her of not caring about her child if that was an exceptional event. Seems like your girlfriend has some underlying issues about your past relationship. My fiancé gave me 2 engagement rings. The one he proposed with is smaller and simpler, but more my style. The second ring is a family heirloom, and while it's lovely, it's not the type of ring I would be comfortable wearing every single day. When he gave me the second ring, he told me he wanted me to wear it on special occasions and at certain events because it was more fitting. I've only worn the second ring once, and I almost lost it, so I haven't worn it since. It was his cousin's wedding on the weekend, and he asked me to wear the second ring. I originally was going to wear it, but I felt so paranoid, so I switched back to my usual ring before we left. I didn't expect anybody to notice or care, but his extended family kept bringing it up, and multiple people asked my fiancé why he hadn't proposed with the heirloom ring. I know his uncle pulled him aside and asked him if he was even serious about me, since he didn't give me the right ring. We've been fighting over it since the wedding, as he's upset I didn't wear the ring after I said I would, and because I knew how important that ring is to his family. He thinks I should have known his family would ask questions, and he admitted he thinks he should have just proposed with the heirloom ring instead. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. It was one event and you agreed. You said you would wear the ring, then took it off right before leaving. You knew before doing that how important it was. You chose to create this situation. You're the a-hole. You both agreed you would wear it on special occasions. Wear the damn ring on those occasions. Jeez, some women get nothing. She gets 2 rings, and it's a ducking problem. Yep, you're the a-hole. You said you would, and you didn't. And of course his family is going to ask about an heirloom ring. Like, why didn't someone else inherit it if OP doesn't appreciate it enough to wear it? Come on.